Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm glad I am not living in a lonely world. To have you all here joining us, fantastic to see such a packed audience once again. I hope you're refreshed and refueled as I get my clicker. We've had a fantastic morning, some great insights, been on a real journey, so I'm glad you're sticking with us for some more. This next session, a really important one, it's been talked about at a high level, I think, quite a bit so far, the importance of cross-border logistics and international flows, so integral to Mexico capturing the opportunities that be presented with nearshoring and the ramp-up and the journey towards electrification and what that means. So here, joining me, I've got a great panel lined up, some great experts to talk us through some operational excellence, streamlining flows, and how the changing dynamic in international trade is reshaping the landscape. So let's get my first guest up on stage with more than 20 years experience in logistics, transportation, and customs, gaining experience at companies like Ryder, Bokar Group, and Dysex, including operations for the likes of General Motors, Nissan, Toyota, Honda, and Ford. In his current role as transportation manager for Broza across 9 plants in North America, he's responsible for all road freight and inbound sea freight from Asia and Europe. Please welcome to the stage Hugo Villicana, transportation manager, Broza North America. Hugo, welcome. Please have a seat.
Thank you, Richard.
Good to see you. My next guest has more than 25 years experience in international trade and transportation, built his career at Expeditors, leading customs and transportation operations before a successful tenure at Transplace, before joining Uber Freight in 2022, where he currently serves as head of Mexico. Please welcome to the stage, Jesus Ojeda. Jesus, welcome. Please have a seat. And last but certainly not least, with 15 years experience in the supply chain, with especially across inbound, outbound operations, VMI setup, warehouse management, and master scheduling. He joined Hellman in 2019 and currently oversees operations and business development from Canada to Argentina, specializing in cross-border trade and logistics. Please welcome Please welcome to the stage, Jesus Osuna. Jesus, welcome. And thank you for being split up by Hugo, just to make things easier for me. So let's get straight into it. And I want to start by getting an understanding of what some of the patterns you've seen emerging this past year, particularly when it comes to international trade and cross-border logistics. Hugo, I'm going to come to you first on that.
Yeah, sure. I think that's something that we started to see at the end of 2023 that was a bit unexpected, was how the migrant flux moving between Mexico to USA was going to impact transportation. We did saw the Texas government especially taking a very strong position and impacting how the road freight was going to move, especially in the El Paso area where we had to deal with some unexpected crisis. So I think that was probably regarding road freight, one of the most expected things and one that have a strong impact if we are not able to take quick action around that.
Yeah. Jesus, I'll come to you as well.
Several things impacting the cross-border operation right now. One has to do with the infrastructure that we have. If we analyze how the warehousing spaces are in Laredo, everything's crowded now. So if you're looking for a specific cross-docking warehousing operation, it's complicated to get that space. But also when we're talking about customs, the process that we're handling there, the gates that we have for border crossing, sometimes it's complicated. The capacity that we are handling right now with the government, I would like to say it that way, it's important. So in the future, hopefully, the investment needs to be there for us to be more flexible and for us to be able to react more in time to our customer needs. Those are the main drivers that we're looking right now. Also, the other impact we're looking is the capacity with carriers, more players into the market, more customers, more manufacturing into the country. And when talking about the capacity for us to supply that demand, sometimes it gets complicated. A lot of players, but we are not growing the same pace as the customers getting into the country.
Yeah, excellent. And building on that complexity, Jesus, I'll come to you, or Hader, just in terms of if you foresee cross-border logistics and international trade across Mexico becoming more or less stable in the near term.
Yeah, good question. And actually, it's a lot of unknown topics at this point. First of all, transportation. We know that capacity is going to be a struggle. Drivers available as well is going to be a challenge in the near future. Actually, it's facing now, but it's going to be even worse in the future. Second, I will see that port congestions, especially in Mexico, the Pacific side, Manzanillo, Lázaro Cárdenas, we're facing a lot of volumes increase in that ports based on the new material that is coming from Asia, especially through China, that is coming into Mexico, produced, and then it re-exported into the US, but also some of the material stay in Mexico for the Mexican market. So that both, and also that is combined with the trade compliance piece, which is now US is imposing some duties and taxes for China goods going into the US, but also for some Mexican as well. Is a potential. So USMCA is going to be revised 2025, so it's going to be a good timing to see all those clauses and make sure it's alignment for the three countries. It's not just US, it's Mexico and Canada. So we thought that the total trade in North America is going to change in the near future.
Yeah, excellent. And we're going to get deep into the details, but perhaps starting at a high level, what do you consider, I'm interested to understand, what do you consider as some of the fundamentals for robust, reliable, and efficient cross-border and international logistics and flows in this present landscape? Hugo, I'll come to you first.
I think that one of the capacity to be able to plan ahead, validate the volumes, the capacities of what the kind of carrier you will need to move your freight is especially what we are looking to have into our transportation network. Be able to, of course, maximize through that the capacity of the freight. And I think that the basic on a robust network, be able to look for partners that will provide GPS capacity, that will be able to be CityPath certified, that they will be able to give me as a customer a visibility from the moment they pick up the freight and deliver, so we can act together and make sure that once it reaches the border, it crosses as far as possible, that they have a good asset-based dryers capacity to move across the border, and that they are able to communicate effectively with a customs broker for paperwork issues.
Yeah. At the end, everything goes through communication, right? Hugo mentioned it, I think, perfectly. In the other side, Hellman is forwarding company. It's quite important for us to understand which are the requirements from the customer, right? Because in the operation, it's not only the transportation company or the forwarding company. We're talking about from your side also operations area, procurement area. So for us to be able to understand all the requirements and expectations that you have, it's quite important. When we're talking about a shipment, it's not the lead time from your facility to the border. We're talking basically a door-to-door shipment, and a lot of different partners are working together to have or to make that operation efficient, right? So operations, procurement, from us to understand the requirements, to work with our carriers, to work with the customs broker, if it's a cross-docking operation at the border, if it's warehousing, all of those needs to come together to understand your lead time, your needs, and for us to be able to deliver to commitment. So those are like the main drivers that we need to really understand to have a better communication with our customer and the whole supply chain for us to be able to deliver a good service.
And something that Jesus and me have been speaking in the backstage, and even with you in the preparation of this interview, is that we have to start making decisions based on a supply chain strategy, not segment the process in transportation, in shipping, and handling. The stronger we get, the more integrated we are able to get internally, me as Abrose, with my manufacturing, with my material planning, with all that, I can give a better a strategy to my partners that are part of that chain on how we need to be more efficient to deliver the goods. So I think that's where we need to push forward to get more robust. We have to think in a supply chain strategy, not only transportation, not only warehousing, to get most benefit of my internal processes and my external relationships.
Yeah, and I think on top of the Hugo's and Jesus' comments, I will say that technology, compliance, and security is very important as well. Technology, obviously, the capacity to transmit data, information into the different players in the supply chain is going to be key. Compliance-wise, as I mentioned before, it's a lot of regulations in the U.S. and the Mexican customs authorities that that the brokers need a reliable information in order to process the shipments in a good way and avoid potential penalties and fines, but also the security. Everybody knows that we are facing some challenges here in Mexico in the highways, so implement a very robust processes to mitigate the risk is going to be key to continue the supply chain in Mexico.
Excellent. And Hugo, I mentioned when I introduced you that you were responsible for the transportation across the 9 plants in North America for Broza. Can you share the outlook there? Not the outlook, excuse me. Can you just share some details of the network design and the flows that you have in place? And what's the thinking behind that?
Well, we also in Broza have been transitioning into a network that is being driven by the plant, meaning that each plant had a person or several persons responsible for the transportation into the project and responsible for, that is the Broza Transportation Management Team. And we are in the process of doing an evolutionary and strategic thinking of trying to create more synergies between the volumes in the plants in order to gain efficiencies, get savings, and be able to reduce CO2 emissions, reduce miles, and be able to provide a more accurate information to our carriers so we can plan ahead and be more proactive on how we are spending the money. So we are moving from a plan-driven transportation into a more centralized group, or that's where we stand, and we are still taking steps into an evolutionary process on how to gain the most efficiencies between the location of my clusters of suppliers and the physical location of some of our plants. So we are still driving that process. We are having some good results on the planning. We have some good story success, especially in our Canadian cluster into our Michigan plants. So I think we are in a good position to keep pushing these initiatives.
Yeah, excellent. And just sticking with you, Hugo, for a moment, how do you balance the utilization of ports versus land crossings, and how are you building in flexibility to be able to pivot from one to the other when disruptions occur or bottlenecks occur?
Well, we have to, I think that in order to be able to manage effectively those kinds of disruptions, we have, of course, we as the central transportation team, we have constantly monitoring the roads, what's happening in the borders, but one important player in that is the eyes on the road that our forwarders and logistic partners are able to provide. Again, we have to be integrated. Sometimes we in a desk, in a computer, we don't have the feeling of what is happening. Just out in the last couple of days, that blockage on the World Trade Bridge, if I'm sitting in my desk not watching the news, I might miss it. If I have a good player on that side of the border, they are going to give me a call. They will tell me in that moment what is happening and what our options are. Of course, in a port as sensitive and Laredo, where the operation is so big, we have to include the custom broker and see what options do we have. Can we wait until it gets clear? Is the custom authority open Colombia, which is made in my Valero, as a secondary port to cross my trailers and my loads? So it's that kind of options that allow us to make the right decisions in the right time.
Yeah, please.
Totally aligned. The most important thing is to rely on solutions, to be reliable with the partners you're working with. And in that case, an example of what we're doing normally in Hellman is if we're handling the ocean portion, we are looking in a global perspective what could impact you in the final mile, right? So if we're having some delays in the ocean port, for the import process. We can communicate that to you. If there's a disruption, we can do some other things for us to be able to deliver to success with the operation to you. One of the things that we're doing is the transloading maybe into the ports, and whenever there's a situation at the border, again, Colombia can act, and also Piedras Negras. I mean, we can do some things differently, but we are the eyes on the road. We are the eyes on the water for us to be able to give you solutions, for you to take the right decisions on time. So that's what a forwarding company should be able to do, to deliver those specific solutions to our customers, to our partners.
Yeah, excellent. And mentioned the flexibility there is key, and being agile is more important than ever. And Jesus, perhaps I'll come to you. How, as a logistics provider, can you support customers like Google, other manufacturers, remain competitive, but offering that greater flexibility?
Yes, actually, always using the technology to connect networks is very important for us. And taking the example that Hugo just mentioned, just this week, we have some incidents in Nuevo Laredo, some protests are blocking the roads and the way to the Mexican Customs compound. So it takes some hours to be open, and then the following day, it was yesterday, it happened again. So everything is about communication between the shippers, customs broker, and the transportation companies in order to react and move it into the different ports. And in this time, we negotiate with the Nuevo Laredo authorities to be able to clear customs through the Colombia. So now everything is flowing through Colombia, but obviously the amount of trailer that is crossing just for Laredo is 18,000 trailers. So we have to be ready to react. It's not just for the northbound piece, because if we don't have the tractors to move it into the south, it's going to be struggling the Laredo sites as well. So everything is connected, so we have to be ready to react as a business continue to plan in order to provide customers the flow that they need in order to continue with their supply chain.
Yeah, excellent. And Hugo, I'll come to you. And nearshoring offers nearshoring for suppliers like Broza, but also perhaps your own supply chain and local supply base offers great opportunity to gain more business, increase output, which is like I say, is a great opportunity, but could put further strain on the network. So how are you balancing and developing this growth in a sustainable way that doesn't exacerbate problems already existing at the border or international gateways or across the freight networks?
Again, I think that we have to deal with that. Of course, nearshoring is something we are hoping that will materialize. We are all trying to relocate suppliers. Fortunately, here in Brose, we have a very strong leadership organization that is trying to steer those conversations. We are still evaluating the process of working with, let's say, our purchasing department to evaluate what makes sense to move into the North America region, where we have some opportunities to keep the cost of the pieces at the same. But trying to be concise in answering the question, I think is again goes back to the part of the strategy. Is my purchasing department lets me know in advance, hey, we are moving this number of suppliers, this number of pallets or as another volume. What can we do together to make sure that we include that new volume into the region? Create a new network redesign, because every time you add or lose volume into your network, you have to evaluate what's going to be the impact, and then what's going to be how you will be handle it. Of course, into that network design, we have to consider the stock value of our goods. We don't have, if we are able to, we want to avoid having to pick up once a week. If the supplier is located in an area where we can include it in a mill run, that will provide those value of maybe making daily pickups and not increasing the transportation volume. So that opportunity of the nearshoring, we have to materialize into a logistic strategy and transportation design that will allow us to keep at least the status quo, ideally be able to create some efficiencies and further increase utilization of my transportation or trailers and reduce my logistic costs ideally.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not just the capacity that's changing those demands, but it's the types of service as well that you'll need. Perhaps those milk runs, perhaps those just-in-time services versus international flows. So I'm keen to hear from Jesus, just how you're planning and developing your own business and solutions to be able to accommodate this shift in demands and needs. Jesus, I'll come to you first.
Thank you. I will say first, expanding our current footprint is important. We just opened a new office in Nuevo Laredo to hold all the customer service executives to process all the Mexican customs services there. But also we hold 1.7 million square foot in Laredo, Texas, in 8 different facilities. Half of them it's to receive all the material that is coming into Mexico, to be ready to have the Mexican process, which is unloaded, make the preview, which is make sure that the material that we are receiving match with the documentation that we will provide to Mexican customs authorities. But half of them is for final goods. So there is material already processed in Mexico that is going into the U.S. market. So we receive it there and we process the shipment once the POs are released and delivered to the final consignees. That is the footprint, but also I think we think that the individual keep hiring the right people. It's important for us as well, and also develop a tech center here in Mexico City. We already open 20 different persons is now working. It's not just for work through our current tools, but also customized based on the Mexican market needs. And at the end, it's going to be also the diversification of the product that we offer, tied in the customs piece, which is the Laredo ones, with the transportation, but all those given that visibility through our one transportation management system helps customers to provide the real end-to-end solutions in the markets.
Yeah.
We foresee that increase of the operation related to the nearshoring. We're also doing a lot of investments. Mainly in the last 6 months, we just opened a new office in Laredo, and we're pushing hardly with our sales department to also be close to our customers, because that's the most important thing. In terms of TMS, we're also investing to have the digital solutions that our customer and the market requires, because right now it's not only with the spreadsheets, right? We need to take it to the next level. We need to go to the digital era, and we need to start creating the communication with our customers and with the supply base through EDI, to APIs, and that's something that will differentiate that against how the market is working right now. So again, investment together with nearshoring needs to be there, but taking it to the next level.
Yeah, excellent. Hugo, it's clear how fundamental and critical cross-border logistics and international flows are for your operations. Keen to understand what are some of the strategies or the strategies you've focused on that help you prioritize this and prioritize efficiency, and mitigate delays, reduce empty mileage when it comes to these flows?
Well, regarding to cross-border, I think that there are 2 initiatives that me as a transportation manager is curious to put forward next year. Is how can I increase the Raya's capacity in the border, especially going north. I think one strategy that I will try to exploit the most with division of my airport management is try to push more the use of B1 drivers, that maybe for the people in the audience that are not familiar are Mexican drivers that have a special license that are able to haul the trailer from the yard in Nuevo Laredo all the way to the final destination, and they have to come back. They cannot do intra-USS pickups. They go north and south, and that's it. I think that's a way that we can find some ways to gain efficiencies. Ideally, if we can use those drivers with a southbound loads, we create a very good business case for the carrier to be a partner with us. Another strategy is that we have worked very hard into validating the master data in the TM that we use in order to measure, to validate what kind of cube utilization we are going to have into any given trailer. Mm-hmm. The ability of see what we are going to get loaded with a very strict education to our supply base that you are going to ship, what we are asking you to ship. no more, nor less. You are not going to kill us out, you are not going to underutilize us. That's a way that we have, based on the master data, education to supplier, we can get efficiencies and reduce our transit times by trying to move into a more direct lanes instead of going into console or LTA, ideally.
Okay, and that shift from LTL to FTL for that maximum efficiency there, is that having an impact on how you manage your inventory and the scheduling of your flows?
Ideally, since we are going to have the material arriving faster into my plants with less touches in the process, it has two benefits. First, we reduce the chance of something get damaged, a pallet being crushed or mishandled. And the second part is ideally, yes, if I can be able to reduce, let's say if I move from a 12-day LTL pickup to 5-day, then my plants have to carry less inventory. And of course, that's good for the organization. But that has to come with an internal alignment with the logistics teams of every plant, because they are the ones who know the product. They know how it has to be sounded. So again, we have to go back to that supply chain strategy. We can review the data, we can review the volumes, we can say, hey, I'm using this volume is worth 5 trailers per week. But in that sense, they have to be able to let us know how that impacts them internally and how can we benefit not only from the stock value perspective, but also from the warehouse utilization. So it's, again, that initiative that we as Abrose, with our upper manager, we are trying to do. We have to centralize, we have to communicate internally even to gain the most efficiencies. And we have to become better, as is our motto in the organization.
Excellent. Yeah, please.
Yeah, I think at the end, visibility is the name of the game here. If you have a strong visibility tool, which is a TMS, we can foresee where the shipment is going. And some of the customers, we foresee that they are trying to build the FTL out of their plants in Mexico, but also it's in a very important area to explore if they can just ship out the plants in Mexico and put it in Laredo, Texas to build FTL based on the destination. So we can merge in transit and get consolidation based on the destination and send direct FTLs onto the final destination instead of have multiple LTL. So that is going to be reducing the transit time as well, but also reduce the cost of the transportation piece. So we are trying to play that game, giving the customer the visibility, go on some engineering studies, and then create some models that can fit their customer needs.
Yeah, at the end, I think all connects to both comments. I think it's important, your expectation and what you're doing, but most of it comes to the digitalization, the TMS. It's very important for your team, from the materials department, for them to be able to know where is the material, where are the goods they need to, for them to be able to manufacture. So if they have that transparency and they also look which is the inventory that they have at the border, they know when they need to pull it and which is the inventory that they're going to be pulling, right? Because it's not only to have the material in transit, it's also for your raw whip, the impact that you'll have into your inventory at the plant, so you can control those inventory levels that will impact you in the future. So that visibility that you're mentioning, it's quite important, and it relates to the TMS, the digitalization that we need to have to provide that specifically visibility, communication, and agreement with our customer.
And then there's maybe just to close this part of the conversation, if I can create a good network design, if I have partners that we are work together to reduce the transit time, the inventory at the plants, and they are able to provide good visibility, I, as a customer, will have to hold my carriers accountable for delivering the freight on time. Because if I reduce my inventory, if they are delayed, I have to hold them accountable for delivering in time and picking up in time. Because otherwise, then I run into a problem because I made a commitment with my internal customers that has to be respected. So we can create the best design, but then we all have to be responsible and we have to work as a good partners to realize that ultimate objective.
Yeah, and with greater transparency becomes that greater levels of accountability. and therefore the need for greater trust and strength in those partnerships with your providers. Let's keep on the topic of digitalization, of technology. We've heard a little bit, it's a hot topic, AI, data analytics. How is this fundamentally improving cross-border logistics beyond what we've just mentioned now, perhaps in terms of forecasting, transit times? Jesus, I'll come to you first on that.
AI is important now. Actually, for us, it's helping us a lot to improve our customs processing in a timely manner, but also with the compliance with the Mexican and the U.S. customs regulations. That data is everything. So if we can avoid retaking the information that the customers are providing, is the better. Second, machine learning is helping us a lot. We have had very manual processes to receiving and shipping out of our warehouse in Laredo, Texas. So now we are using machine learning to get the information, scan, and identify all those information that is needed in order to process our WMS, and then attach it, integrate with our customs portal in order to start processing the Mexican customs clearance as well. So all those chains of information is important, and we reutilize the information that we are providing at the beginning and convert it in a final product, which is a dispatch with customs processing documentation directly to the customs compound. So.
Well, regarding digital, I think that we are missing one, or Jesus is bringing up a good point regarding how digitalization can help us improve the custom processes. I think that in that respect, the U.S. Custom authorities is well advanced versus what the Mexican counterpart can do. So I think another challenge that we have discussed here is how to improve the custom processes in Mexico. Sometimes they are slow. There has been promises in regarding how to improve those, and it has not been realized yet. The Mexican customs is usually a bit of a challenge for all players, especially when the system goes down, when there are no covers, nor something goes wrong. So we have to be able to, and I think that we have discussing a lot of the role of the transportation or the carriers, the 3PLs, me as transportation manager, but in that part we also have to work efficiently with our custom broker to make sure that their process is completed flawlessly and on time. I think that one advantage that we have on some cases when we are not exploiting so far or that much, is the transit time between the pickup place and the destination. We have hours, sometimes 18, 20, where if the custom broker is well aligned with us, when the driver hit the borders, the customer is ready. If we can go into digitalization and some other efficiencies there, we can get a lot of advantage of that, as long as that respects the compliance part of the process.
Yeah, that's really, really interesting points there, and we'll encourage our audience as well to get involved, ask some questions. We can make this an interactive session, so please, if you do have questions, do raise your hand. I'm not sure if I can see, so yeah, please do alert me if you want to get involved. Just sticking a little bit with digitalization, just to maybe close this out, ensuring data accuracy and transparency, is key. With cross-border logistics, international flows, there are so many stakeholders, so many elements. So how is it that you can ensure accuracy and full transparency across that ecosystem so that your end-to-end strategy can actually operate successfully? And that's an open question.
We really need to start with the communication with our customer to set the expectations and to understand which will be the SOP of the operation, right? When we understand which will be that specific lane, from where to where is going to be moving, we need to know which will be the authorized stops that we could have within the operation, but also to have a clear tracking and trace for that specific shipment. And we're not doing it by phone. We need to have a specific platform. We are already doing it that way for you to have the visibility of where the shipment is, but also for us to be able to avoid risk into the road, right? So if there is a specific situation happening, for us to be able to have a risk analysis before the operations start, because if we need to have a specific decision in time, we really need to react as soon as possible, and that decision needs to come to you as a customer. So that's the way we normally work. We would like to have like this efficiency, this transparency with our customers, for them to be able to take the right decisions with the right quality, but also with the right transparency of where their goods are. And that will be the main focus that we're doing right now for this decision taking.
And something that, again, we've been discussing backstage is how companies like Hellman and Uber Freight can act as our eyes on the roads and warners of threats on the horizon. We were discussing just what happened with the Easter Seaport strike and how being able to work with our logistic partners. Of course, we also monitor the news. We have a lot of eyes on the global scenario, let's say, but being able to say, well, there's the threat of a strike coming, how that will impact my operation, what are the scenarios we can run to? Do we decide to hope for the best and don't do anything? Or we start evaluating what are the diversion options? At the end of the day, we were able to act quickly, divert some of our freight that end up helping us avoid several very expensive air freight or expedite shipments from Europe, and that helped us keep the risk to the minimum. We were able to evaluate what would be the best case scenario to diversion, and of course that comes with an extra cost, but with all the players being aligning together, we see the threat on the horizon, evaluating the scenarios on what we want to do best, be able to have meetings with the plants and internal customer to present the solution and work in a decision together. I think that's how we can build a good and strong relationship with our partners, and us internally create being a good internal service provider for my manufacturing locations.
Yeah. And on top of Hugo's and Jesus' comments, I would say that the onboarding process is critical. If we can set that with the customers and set the expectations, put the golden rules, who's the players, what is the services that each of the players are performing, and what happens if something is wrong in one part of the processes, how can we react, how can we put a business continuity plan in place in order to react for if something is not working in the good way. It's critical. So as soon as we have the expectations set, it's just go and start moving goods and clear customs, everything. But at the end, it's going to be a combination for the different players, putting in a single platform to get the integration for the systems wise, but also for the visibility for all the supply chain players.
Excellent. So I'm keen for our audience, beyond what we've discussed, is to really maximize your expertise here and understand some of the other key best practices for cross-border logistics. I imagine many in the room here are experiencing those disruptions, those delays on a daily basis. So what are you three, as experts who are living and breathing this, beyond what we've discussed, where do you see the biggest opportunities for manufacturers, be it the car makers, be it the suppliers, to really streamline those operations?
I think that I think that we sometimes get used to have that daily communication with our partners, but something that we have to make sure that happens at least every quarter is having those QBRs to see where we stand, what our KPIs are doing, and what is coming. Those kind of places within the organization are good places to share, hey, we have a new project, there's a project ending soon, and be able to pass that vision of what will happen in the business. To me, it's very important to align the expectation and pass what new challenges will come down the road in a very short term.
I think it goes in two ways. One, first, the communication at the beginning, the onboarding, the SOPs with the customer to set the expectation. But at the end, you just mentioned it about the QBRs, and QBRs is not about just communication. It's about the intelligence that we as a logistics provider can deliver to you, right? If we're having a specific lane and we think that we can have an efficient solution for you to deliver cost savings, that will be great for you. So that's something that we really need to be analyzing, because it's not just communication, it's the intelligence behind that communication that needs to be delivered to our customer. That's the differentiator that we can bring to the supply chain.
Yeah. Uber Freight understand that logistics is not just move goods, point A, point B. It's really build a long-term relationship with the customers, fully understand their needs, and then hand-to-hand start working together in order to create solutions and provide them that technology in order to gain market share in their business. With that, we are trying to move from the regular service provider to a strategic partner, and then have a long-term relationship and success as well.
Yeah, excellent. And I think that comment about strategic partnerships really sets up our next session that will follow. So as we're coming pretty close to time, perhaps one kind of final question for the panel. To our providers on the panel, what do you need as logistics providers from your key customers to help you provide them with a better service when it comes to international flows?
From our side, the most important thing is communication. Definitely when we are running an RFQ or a bid with our customers, we receive that information from procurement, right? But it's quite important to have that synergy between operations, because they are like the ones expecting one service, but the other side is procurement. Procurement normally is looking basically for cost, obviously with the requirements of the operation, but we need to have that synergy for us to really understand it and for us to be able to deliver to commitment. So that will be like the most important thing. And besides that, we really think that the opportunity to develop and to create better infrastructure into the country, it's not only related to the private investors, talking about trucking companies, warehousing companies, customs agents and stuff. It also relies into the government. So we really need to have better highways, better security, better gates at the border, and the ports, better terminals, for us to be more efficient and to deliver a better service to our customer. But specifically, talking about the requirements or what could be expect from them will be that specific communication and transparency about what you really need.
The idea that day-to-day operation and new onboarding, I think that either they as a service provider or my purchasing department has to make sure that always the operational part of the business is onboarded as quickly as possible to get their comments. I think that probably several people on this stage or this auditorium has had to learn the hard way of purchasing, leaving operation at the last minute and then running into surprises.
Yeah. Excellent.
Yeah.
Jesus, your final comments?
I resume like a partnership long-term commitment between both. We already spoke about technology, communication, procurement processes, everything. But at the end, if the relationship is there, we can start having an open conversations and tweak some pending item that needs to be adjusted in the processes by itself. So I think as soon as we have that conversation, it's obviously it's a long commitment, but also it's going to be revising the QBRs every 2, 3, 4 months. It's going to be ready to measure, but also improve. So I think at the end it's going to be a win-win situation if both parties are agreed to work with.
Yeah, and Hugo, coming to you, perhaps for the final comments. Just what would you like to see continued, or your expectations for logistics partners, providers, suppliers, to ensure that Brosa's network remains competitive and reliable despite the growing uncertainty we've heard about, and despite the ongoing challenges, multiple crises and disruptions we face on a daily basis?
I think that during the duration of this event there has been plenty of talk about technology, trends, and where we are going. But I think that's something, and both Jesus has been made a good point of like how they are trying to get advantage with their IT investments and their very strong setup of warehousing and operation. But I think that's something that we had to make sure that every carrier or every partner is able to provide is a good human resources, either drivers, that they can secure good capacity, that they can make investment in making sure that they are able to cover that gap of imbalance in the drivers available. For me, besides technology, besides the infrastructure, we had to make sure that they will be able to secure the assets to move my freight in an efficient manner that is trained and they can cover the right security requirements.
Yeah, excellent. Well, thank you so much all for your insights and your time now. Ladies and gentlemen, Jesus, Hugo, and Jesus. Please, gentlemen.